regions and clearly say, within the first 3 years, we must have done this, 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 and this.
Okay.
On top of the table must be matters health. We can now not ignore matters health.
Right.
We cannot ignore education. When it comes to the youth and economic empowerment, access to finance, you know, those are the issues that are now affecting youth. How are we leveraging and having youths come out of this university, colleges, ready to employ vis-a-vis looking for employment?
Okay.
We should be having so many of us employing at the village setup. Everybody, after you finished campus, if you're in electorate, the next stop is Nairobi. So you find Nairobi is already overcrowded. Now, at the national level, what are we doing for us to ensure that even industrialization goes back to the counties? And there are so many incentives you can give. For instance,
Harriet, and I think I agree to what it is that you're saying. That brings me again to the aspect of the BBI, and maybe I'll look in our Walter in this as he reacts to the previous point. Of concern is the aspect of tax that we're talking about today that is enshrined in the BBI. I mean, how is it even possible that you're going to give this youth tax holidays? They lack space, what it is that she's talking about. They lack the muscle to go out and create employment. They lack resources. They lack mentorship. They're not even able to start up businesses. So how can they even be employers in the first place? How can we even give them a reprieve of something that they do not have?
We do know that, and it's an average of 90% fail for startups in this country.
Yeah.
And majority of these startups they're lucky to go through to go past 3 years, which is a system problem, which is a mentorship problem. And that is why we're saying, guys, let us not continue to fix piecemeal. Let us not, every time we want to shout and fix something, if we don't fix the system, if we don't fix the leadership of this country in the manner that we all want things to be, we can be here another 2 years from now on this bench, the way we are sitting like this, and we're still having the same problem if we don't fix it.
All right.
When Harriet talks about once you're elected, that story of your manifesto, that story of your party, that story of your ideologies cease to exist.
Right.
You start to serve the people that you have been elected to serve. You as a governor, you as a senator, you as a women rep, then you need to sit down together. Let me give an example of a meeting that I saw taking place during the Mashujaa Day for 8 years. The governor of Kisii County, Nyamira County, the MPs from those areas, the MCAs had not met. They just met the other day, 8 years on, when the president was coming to Kisii.
Yes, because
and had we done that the moment we were elected, how much would it have changed? The Constitution provides for collaborative approach to working. When we sit over here, I'm not seated here to, pit his thoughts against mine and yours and an opinion and come out shining. We are here to reason together and pick on each other's points so that whoever is watching us and listening to us can be able to see hope for the future that we are talking about. So if we begin to fix the systems of this country, if we begin to give people a chance, and I always say this, please don't sacrifice, Edward, don't sacrifice an MP until the 5 years are over. Now, you have two things you can do. If you think by midterm it's not performing, you have a recall clause that is provided by the law. Now, if you're not able to invoke that and recall your MP, then you've got to measure him at the end of the term and make a radical decision to either have him or not. That can only happen if the citizens are conscious. And what lacks, and I agree with all of us, and I can tell you, it's not that I'm in government so I can, be a piper and say this is happening and everything. We have failed as a country and we have failed as a leadership to engage our people and our young people meaningfully. Meaningfully in the sense that engagement is not just, come, I give you tax rebates. I give you tax rebate of a job that you don't have. Of what value is that? We are failing to engage the citizens, and particularly the young people, because they form 70% of this population. The median age in this country is 20. That means basically every other Kenyan you meet is a young person.
Okay.
But we fail to engage them in a meaningful way.
Right.
The civic systems and processes are not up to the level that we want them to be, and therefore next year we will be re-electing the same people who,
yes.
And when Harriet said earlier, ujakula gedaiga, so akika mazesi jakula yako, and that is a fix now mentality and fix quick mentality, which is eating into us.
They do that because they're almost certain that once Mheshimiwa is there, sasa hutawahi kula completely. So afadhali ukule saa hii, akiendanga aendange kama ulishakula. Walter acknowledges that we have a problem with the system, with the structures. And we are even having a conversation today as a nation of incorporating a document that is instrumental toward changing the lives of the people, changing the nation. We have the best constitution, as they would argue, in the 2010 constitution. But because we do not have proper systems that would implement this institution, this constitution, there's literally nothing that we're doing. Should we then say that we are running a losing battle in trying to push the BBI because we have not addressed the problem in the systems?
Indeed, like Walter said, it, what is happening on the ground? When you take the BBI on the ground, it's been rejected, and I'll just be very sincere, because the youth or the citizens are dealing with real issues at this moment, right? And even though they want to be hopeful of the coming future through the BBI, but is the government, is the leaders who have been elected addressing those issues? I like what Walter has brought out and mentioned about startups. Indeed, thank you very much, Walter. But what is the leadership doing? We've had these statistics for so many years that startups in Kenya don't last past 1 year, right? And those which are lucky, 90% don't pass 1 year, 10% they don't pass 3 years. They just crash. So what are these leaders doing to address these issues? And secondly, even where youth are in business, what capacity is being done for them to be sustainable? And this is one thing I want to point out. I just got a job the other day because of the COVID-19, business is bad. So I decided, look, let me go back into employment. And I got a job as a strategic partnerships director for an organization called Ada Labs Africa. Ada Labs Africa is an incubation unit that incubates startups. And right now we have 7 startups that are doing really well. For the last 8 months we've been working on that. And one thing I've picked up from there is this, is that first you have to inculcate to the youth to start believing in themselves. Because we can have youth fund, we can have all these affirmative action funds, but if they don't know who they are as individuals or collectively, then even if you give them 50,000, 100,000, it's going nowhere. They'll come back again with their hands stretched to give me more. So I would like to challenge Walter positively to come to our office and see what we're doing with young people and see the transformation we're actually doing. Because where he sits, he can then address the leaders, which I can't. And this is why you find a lot of radicalization and forcefulness amongst youth, because they are not reaching to those leaders. So they have vented issues inside them, and the only time they have time to address it is now. It has to be an explosion, because there's so much they need to be addressed at one time. And that's why there's always this quick fix thing, like let's fix it quickly because there's an issue. And I like what His Excellency the President said the other day. It's a time bomb. So can we change our mindset as well, who are in leadership and positions of power, to now look at it as the way the President is saying, that it's a time bomb. And if nothing is done today to address this issue, something crazy will happen, even in 2022, because the youth are feeling desperate. Look at what COVID has done to the economy. Already even the government itself is broke. How about the citizens? We are reading yesterday the papers, we are saying we're going to borrow 1 trillion shillings. Where are the youth going to borrow?
That is the question. And I mean, that would inform my next question. The economic opportunities that we have today, the inability that is there within the economy, first of all, to even keep up with the aspirations that we have so far as a people. I mean, that is the biggest issue that is hurting us today. He brings on board it. I mean, don't you think that we need to have a conversation revolving around this? How do we get ourselves to that point as a nation where we are sitting on a strategic aspect, and then we can confidently say that, you know what, we have youth who understand what it is that they have. They have so much knowledge, we can tap into that. Yes. We can do this, that, and that to ensure that we are able to make the best of our youth. I mean, what do we do about the economy?
All right, let me just start by saying in 2010, World Bank had done a report, and in their projections, out of the 56 million, is it 56 or 46 million Kenyans then?
Yeah.
Only about 3.5 were in employment. Right. Now, picture this. 3.5 million Kenyans are carrying the burden of 56.
Yes.
Oh my, that is a lot. It is a lot. And all that. And this is the middle class who are being taxed.
Yeah.
In fact, as late as yesterday, there's a new tax. For as long as you start a business, you're being taxed.
Digital tax. Digital tax.
It's called digital tax. But that is where we are. Now, when you look at the figures, already you can tell yourself we are sinking. And at this particular time, we are on recession. Everybody, no bank is lending money. No bank is lending money, and they will not tell you that. They're now trading with the government,
Right.
you know. And that is where the problem is, because for as long as money is not in circulation, there is no business. And I can assure you, every profession is now struggling. People have packed up and have gone back home because they are saying, why am I struggling in this setting? You know, sadly, the business people also are struggling because they took mortgages to put up magnificent buildings. When you go around this town, you'll find quite a number of them are empty. But the sad part is they are not even doing the projections in terms of value for money. Why don't you scale down and at least fill those buildings with the youth who are looking for small spaces to do their business, and you do your 5 years projections in terms of leveraging and getting your money back. Then we go back to the financiers and tell them, hey guys, we need to rearrange this plan that we had. You know, these interest rates are too high. Yes, we borrow the money, the building is up. Let us scale down. So the business and economic sector within this country is also very selfish. And I will say that with a lot of confidence because we are so greedy to amass so much wealth that you're willing to keep an empty building because your projections were you want to get 70% profit. You know, we are so greedy, you know.
I call it selling a starlet at the cost of your problems. As in, niko na shida ya 1 million na niko na starlet, so chukua my starlet and
700.
So that is the kind of thinking that we are in. You know, even the business owners are not seeing that you're better off filling a building. And there are so many. There's even one on Thika Road I participated in putting it up. It's not even 50% let. 5 years down the line. Yet it's simple. I remember there's a time I told them, why don't you partition like 3 floors? Small cubicles where you can list them for 20,000 to youths who don't need to have 1,000, 1,500. But you find most of them are saying, no, we want to give a whole floor. You're giving a whole floor to who? COVID has shown us we can now work at home, but we are still insisting on office space. Soon those offices will be transformed into housing units because people will now prefer to live and work in the offices. So you have a work, you have a work studio, you know. Now, having said that, and in terms of where we want to push the economy and the structures that we want, I think we need to go back to our drawing board. We evaluate our public debt. We evaluate public financing, and then we look at how can we be able to make proper use of the resources that we have. You know, I like what they are doing, and after this, I think I should hold his hand dearly, because when you give youths, even these chairmans, the CBOs, 100,000, and you tell them, go and build your business. You've not told them how to budget for that money. You've not told them how to expense it. You've not given them business plans on how they can even expand their business. And you've not even taught them how they can be able to repay this money without breaking a sweat. And then how to leverage on the market, you know. Now, that is where we go wrong.
All right.
Because you can be given the money, but you don't know how to spend it. And you'll agree with me, our generation going down, our generation going up, most of us were not even taught how to use money. In fact, I remember you'd have 200 shillings and you ask, umetoa wapi your 200 shillings? Where did you get that money from? You know, having money as a child was really bad. But I remember talking to one of the business tycoons in this country, and they told me, you should allow your children to have money.
To handle money.
When you have 100,000, give them. Let them smell it. Let them know what money is. Yes. And teach them.
Smell it.
Smell it.
You know, don't do anything, just smell it and bring it back.
And bring it back.
Which we will discuss.
And
subject to discussion.
And then teach them how to keep that money, how to earn that money, and how to make proper use of it.
How realistic is this?
Let me put it this way.
Right.
First, COVID is a good thing. It's because it has disrupted things and the world, okay? And for us to think. And it's important that we do that. And we needed a moment like this for us to realize that you can't sit there and think that everything is perfect and start to do, you know, it's like your phone. If you have a problem with one app that is slowing down your phone, what is the easiest thing that you need to do? Is reset your phone. Yes. Would you lose some data? Yes, you will. But that's the cost of staying alive. If we don't do that in this country, we are going to continue fixing a problem. Ni kama sasa unafunikia kidonda tu ukiendelea. Talk about what Edward has said, what their company is doing. I appreciate what they're doing because it's an opportunity that they have seen that has been created by a gap. And that's a good business approach and analysis as you come into the market. There's an opportunity right there. But I need to go back to what I said. When you strengthen government structures and systems, Youth Fund, what was Youth Fund meant to do? The Youth Fund was not about loaning people.
No.
It had to do we are to identify, nurture. We do capacity building beyond just, you know, talking to you about how the business can be successful, but, you know, incubate your idea before we even give you the money. And at the end of the day, we should be able to do what we call equity stake. For about 2 to 3 years, we help you to create boards, we help you to create management. That is what Youth Fund as a unit is meant to do. The question is, do we do that? No. Why? Because the consumer end, who are the youth, wakikam yeye anataka do. Okay? Hii Youth Fund kunpatia do. But they forget, the same youth forget that I need to take you through that process. For your idea to be viable, for it to be sustainable. The reason why we have defaults and we have failures in repayment, it's because we respond to pressure and political pressure. Youth Fund mazee ampeani do. So what we do in the offices, tunaanza kupeana do. Juu yenyewe it's government money, so let's just give. Because we are under pressure, we are not performing. And that creates the bigger problem of defaulters, because Youth Fund is supposed to be a revolving fund, okay, where you get take some, ukishamaliza unarudisha, we give it to Linda and somebody else. Finally, I want to say this at this point. All these democratic processes and the spaces that we have, to me, is a fallacy. It's a fallacy in the sense that we are too many opinions onto the table and no one is doing anything. And we are very smart on the table. Harriet has a smart point, Edward has, I have, you have. At the end of the day, we leave this place and nothing is done. I would be of the opinion of an authoritarian approach to governance. As a president, you give me the responsibility, you sit, I fix it. And when I say these things have to happen, I see the frustration in my president every other day. Mazi anataka kufanya kitu, but democracy. The paperwork say, what does the constitution say? A guy who's undermining you in public, you can't fire them, because if you fire them, it's an uproar, it's political and everything else. When would we get down to doing what we need to do?
Are you advocating for the imperial direction
If
that very many people have argued. Wait a minute, let me just go through some of the comments before we... All right, I'll pick about 4 questions, or 4 comments here. Maurice Otieno says, watching from Moy's Bridge, a Boda Sacco chair. Let's not put things with a lot of blocks. Leadership needs commitment and representation by serving them, not with papers but brain. We are the sector. It's quite a long one, yes. Boda, who are outside there. Yeah, it's quite a long one. Yes, we are the sector that has youths who are even more rough than those who are outside there. You know what it means to be in the Boda world. And he says, I have been in this leadership for long. I have served them without papers, and I'm a class 8. And it's not that I refuse to go to school. So please allow us to achieve our vision too. Well, we have tried. Even in our ward, we placed a teacher whom we thought will help us, but he totally failed. Natukamwangusha. So in this case, allow us to choose the MCAs that we want. Allow us to choose the MPs that we want. We are tired. It does not really have to be about papers. I think we had that conversation earlier on. Let me pick this other one also. Yeah. Donald Collins says, kindly TV47 BBI is a scam doctored by hypocrites for self-gain. The current constitution gives a good platform for everyone to vie for any seat anywhere, regardless of tribe, education level, even... They're quite long one. Even we need to change the attitude and vote for leaders not wealthy or not learned people. And let us stop thinking that BBI has anything to do with that. Current constitution have given the platforms very well. It is only us as Kenyans that would want to proceed and see this sail through. Like we go ahead and vote people who've just given us 50 shillings during campaign and leave leaders, of course, and great people who would be there to push for this.
Can I jump in on the Boda, please? Okay. If you allow me?
Allow him to say something, because we had this conversation earlier on, and then you come in.
It's fine.
Yes.
Yeah. When we talk about people must have degrees, it's in contravention with another clause in the Constitution. Harriet can find it for us. You know, that's discrimination of some sort. If I'm going to consider you based on certain biases, including education, by the way, it's in the Constitution, it's discrimination. And we can talk about that and see what is it exactly we need in this country other than just papers, other than just produce a paper and get done with it. Boda. We were with a team of 9,000 Boda operators in Kisii, and my president had put aside money to give them to a SACCO. And my president asked the more than 9,000 youth who were in the tent, should I put the money in the SACCO or I give you? And the shouts were very clear to parties. The president had set aside an equivalent of an excess of 6 million for the SACCO. And because our president is a sensitive president and he knew it kept them for long, he had also added another extra 3 million for lunch for them. When they said no to the SACCO, the president put back his money into his pocket and gave them the 3 million. Okay? All right? Because that's what they asked for. Now, my question to us as young people is, if you can't invest in... The reason why they rejected the SACCO thing is not that they are bad people. It's because the SACCO to them does not work, which is a governance issue, which is a structure issue, which is what Harriet said earlier, a national value issue. We no longer have values, we no longer have integrity. So even if you're put in a position of leadership as Boda guys, ni wenyewe hata mjitrust.
I know. The other day there are some of them who were crying foul wanasema DP alienda huko akawaachia 2 million. Hawajui hiyo 2 million imeenda wapi. Wanataka hiyo leadership yenyewe itoe 2 million. It's terrible.
Leadership issue.
Just to carry on on what Walter has mentioned. What we're doing at Adler Labs is we've realized that why there are so many gaps and people don't understand financial inclusion, economic empowerment, is because there is something called lack of a financial digital footprint. I'll take you back to what Walter mentioned about Youth Fund. They're churning all this money. They've given about 12 billion, 15 billion since the time they started. Where is that money in the economy? And it's supposed to have doubled maybe 10 times. We should be having another maybe 30 billion circulating within that economy. One of the gaps that is there is because these people don't have a financial digital footprint. They have the chamas, they have the border groups, but the financial literacy amongst them and understanding what the SACCO is supposed to do for them, they don't have. Because number one, it's not that they don't save, by the way. You'll find this border contribute 20 bob, 50 bob per week per person.
Yeah.
And accumulatively, you can find that to be a lot of money.
Right.
But they do not have a digital footprint. There is nowhere they're recording it on any digital platform to say this is the 50 bob they're collecting. They're all doing that manually.
Okay.
So at Agalabs, what we've done, we're giving them digital platforms that they can start now recording all their transactions. Okay. And we have a product called Ecoba.
Are you charging him for
advertising? And he's extremely very busy, which is okay. I would send my invoice. He's really doing a good job, though.
I wanted to say, because what I challenged us,
yes,
we sit on these tables and we don't do nothing outside.
Right.
What I'm clearly saying is that
there's something that you're doing.
Okay. There's something we're doing. And that's why I would like to invite both of them to come and see what exactly we're doing. Yeah. Right now we're discussing with Youth Fund, Wezo Fund, and all these funds to come and bridge the gap before even they get the loans. Because that gap is that's where the gap is before they get the loans, because they need to understand, like you were saying, what's the sustainable plan? Do they have a business plan? It was about business development. It wasn't about giving 50,000 or 100,000. Yeah. It was about establishing startup companies that will employ. And the reason why there's so much unemployment, even in Kenya, is because we ourselves as youth, we're not employing enough. The other thing I wanted to point out is the use of technology. There's something called artificial intelligence.
Right.
In artificial intelligence, you're able to have predictive measures. I want to say to Walter today, can he give me, even in the office that he sits very politely and humbly, what is the Youth Development Index in this country? It's there, but that data has not been added value. And that is where you use technology like AI, because it can get that data out, structured, and give you predictions of what industry you need to set up per region, right? For example, if Youth Fund would apply AI, they would be able to know, we've been giving out loans for agriculture, right? So we can predict the agribusiness, agro-industry, and say, these youth, instead of them just doing their potatoes, instead of them just doing their nyanyas, now they can start adding value.
Okay.
And we can provide for them a market. So we're challenging government to start listening to youth out there who are innovators, because as you saw, even the president
himself acknowledges that yes, the youth should really be incorporated, and you know, this is my concern.
Yes.
And we pointed out this at some point. We said, you know, we can find ourselves years later having the same conversation. And true to it is that it's not that the government is not involved. It's not that the government is not looking into these spaces. So what is it that we're not doing right, Harriet, that we still have to have the same conversations today? That great brains, brilliant minds would sit in, you know, in rooms and they would discuss this, would have youth incorporated, but we are still on the very same point. And in most cases, we always like saying that, you know what, well, it's not just Kenya. This is a problem. Unemployment is a problem. Issue. Yes, it's a global issue. And I mean...
now, for us to even think wholesomely, even on these questions of leadership, let's just review what are the tenets of good leadership. Basically, what are they? One is integrity. You must be someone who is self-aware of your surrounding. Gratitude, you know, things like learning agility. In fact, in Africa, all our leaders know it all. There's no room for learning. And even when they do benchmarking, it's not benchmarking for the people they serve, it's for self. When you look at influence, how are we influencing the people around us? And then how are we cascading that and spreading that network so that it remains a positive mesh? And then let's look at empathy. You know, how many of our leaders practice these tenets? Remember, papers are not listed there. The tenets of leadership are so simplistic in nature that if you call me to ask for papers, we can give you so many of them. But you could have your master's, you could have your PhD, but if you do not have these tenets and qualities of good leadership, you've lost it. And that is why in Parliament, you can mention a few names, the late Okop, you know, Kibra MP was on another level. He had the qualities of a good leader because it seated in his heart. You know, he was just not speaking it, but it's something that he carried with himself every other day. We have others who are still in that house. We have, I'm trying to get one of the names, the one who ran in Luo Nyanza. He ran on his own personal ticket. The name has just disappeared. But we do have good leaders.
Okay.
Is it to Kenya?
Should be that. It should be on the by-election that was held the other day.
And he won against all odds. And when you sit with some of these leaders, you actually see the way they are so keen in managing the affairs of the people they serve. The question then is, how do they go out there and do this work? And that's all I was saying. If we as leaders delink ourselves from our tribes, our political parties, and agree the moment we take that leadership mantle, we are there to serve. And most people forget that service to the people is service to God. The reward is from God, but as we want to reward ourselves. That is why you'll hear leaders saying, but I've done so much for my people, they are not even thankful.
And I will ask this question, Walter. So, what will it take
so
the electorate to know?
So allow me then to finish by saying, it is very, very important for the electorate to analyze their leaders, not because of how they've been cultured to perceive leaders from where they were born, whether you have a last name or not, who is your mother, who is your father, how fat are your pockets, you know. Let us analyze leadership from quality. Let us start looking at quality vis-a-vis quantity, you know. And if the youth can start thinking in that perspective, we will go a long way. And Kenyans at large, let us evaluate leaders by who they are first, then what do we want them to do? Let us be able to come here and say, you know what, Walter, we are tasking you to be the area MP of this place. What do you want?
Is that serious or is just?
Yeah, very serious. You know,
and you see, that is the reason why.
We want you to take this leadership mantle, and these are the deliverables we want as the people who are sending you to represent us.
That is why I still go back to that initial point, Walter, and this is my argument. Once we elect you into leadership, we do not now sit aside and watch you and wait until 5 years down the line so you can tell us this and this and this. I would want to believe that, you know, for us as citizens to, you know, realize the differences that we want as a people, we genuinely get you into power, whether we believed in your ideologies, whether it was because we aligned to your party, but we sit and focus and always are on your case to see what it is that you're doing. We keep you on toes. So I don't know whether really it would be wise to subscribe to that ideology where let's give them that time until it's 5 years and then we can go back and say, okay, on the ballot, we have you or we do not have you.
This is what if I may, you know, just pick up from some of the things that, some of the great things that we've shared, Edward has shared. He talked about artificial intelligence, which we even have a fully fledged office at the Ministry of ICT to try to tap into that. Because the emerging technology, innovation and everything is something that is occurring on rapidly and on a different scale and on a daily basis. If you look at the informal sector, which accounts for 35% of the GDP, and which actually supports 80% of the employment opportunities that we are talking about. So it's very informal. And Harriet mentioned about statistics that have been done of those people who are formally employed. Less than what? Less than 2 million?
Less than
3.5.
Yeah, less than 3.5. And so when we talk about emerging technology and all these emerging opportunities, it's important that we try and, you know, institutionalize them so that the gains then are scaled, are able to be scaled up. We have a lot of sideshows in this country. BBI becomes a sideshow. Economic stimuli comes in, sideshow. Leader Vision 2030 comes in, it's a sideshow. Everything else is just, you know, we have politics, we have, and you mentioned about you elect a leader in the next 5 years, and maybe it seems that I was alluding to the fact that sit back, relegate, and just watch it perform.
Okay.
This is what I want to say.
Yeah.
When you give me authority to function, please allow me to function.
Okay.
That's number one.
All right.
The public participation that we experience in this country begins to be an opportunity for us to pit you against. Yani, kutoka ile election fever.
Okay.
You know, since we were supporting Edward and not Harriet, and Harriet became the MP, we used public participation to undermine Edward through Harriet, so that Edward doesn't seem to be performing. So we have misused the opportunity of public participation to continue being in an electioneering mode for the time that we should be working. And that's why I said maybe we need to have a very clear relationship between the electorate and those we have elected and leaders, and begin to hold them accountable. When you hold me accountable, does not mean you micromanage me. Does not mean that I need to call you again for us to agree whether the road should be 3 kilometers or not. We knew that the road needs to be fixed. For heaven's sake, let's go into the procurement process of doing the right thing to get the right contractor on site and for the road to be done, not whether we want the road or not. That is what public participation has become, and that's what I call sideshows. We spend a lot of time on the table. Brilliant on the table. We discuss. We have this point of view. If we could do this, if we did this, what is stopping us from doing it? What is stopping us from doing it? It's because we don't have what we call social contracts. When your MP goes in, what was the social contract mlikuwa na yeye? Kabla uanze kuniuliza kuniambia sijafanya job, tuliagree tunadu nini for the 5 years? And that is a relationship between those who are elected and those who are electing. Sit down and agree. For the 5 years, these are our deliverables. This is what we want to achieve for the constituency. I'm not saying that that is not happening. Just because some MPs are quiet does not mean their constituencies are not doing well. So let's not be with this hype of just because we see you on TV very vocal and another MP is quiet doesn't mean that MP is not doing his job.
And in most cases, most of the vocal ones are the ones who are normally hakuna kitu. All right, Edward, we're back on the BBI, and really we all agree that yes, there should be a conversation revolving around this, at least a sigh of relief when the likes of the former Prime Minister, yesterday sort of came out as though they would soften their stance on the fact that, at that point last week they were telling us that, the document should go as it is. But at least now that they're softening the stance, how then do we allow ourselves have a sober conversation, a conversation that is not going to polarize the nation, a conversation that is not going to take us to levels where we're going to have objectives, approaches to technically what it is that you want? I mean, a conversation that will be handy towards ensuring that everything that is incorporated on the BBI in regards to the youth will be implemented. There'll be that goodwill. It will not remain to be policies on paper.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I want to start by pointing out to the division amongst the youth. Because what is happening now, there is one side that is pro-BBI and the other one that is anti. And if you listen to them, it is not their opinion. It is the opinion of the influencers. You understand? They're just copying the piper. They're just blowing the trumpet for the piper. And this is the biggest mistake. Because now even the leaders, Uhuru Kenyatta would love to meet an individual who will tell him in his face, Your Excellency, we like the BBI, but for the youth, this is what more extra we want. But what we have now is people blowing it just to please the president so that they can be in good books and they can be told, you're supporting the president and this side is supporting Tanga Tanga. So the youth for Tanga Tanga will get their money for their campaigns to rival these other youth. And yet, if you look at what the BBI says, they're going to create all this position. And I'm seeing in the near future where Ruto, Raila and Uhuru will sit under one table. And they'll say, and that's what the BBI envisions. And they'll say, look, we are not going to fight about these things. And that's what we have businesses, we have family, let's agree to kule mkate pamoja. And then on the other end, you have a radical youth on this side and this side who will never sit down, who will never agree and say, look, let's agree even us. Let's share these positions. Let's share the cake together. So even the next 5 years, the reason why there's all this political temperature is because you have 70% of the youth who are the majority in population. are disgruntled. So they force the politicians to be in a political mode because they need to be fed
throughout the year.
Because they have been left empty. They don't have anything. They don't have anything to show, right? But the point I'm trying to bring out, and Walter pointed it rightly, is that we need to have a sober dialogue. Right? Let's stop following our masters. And the only way our masters will say that now we have a crop of new leaders who are independent in mind is if we dialogue and tell them one united voice. The group that is saying their side, this side, and the other one come together, right? We cut across all the issues. Because what are we looking at? We're looking at the real challenges facing the youth and moving forward how the BBI will tackle those issues. One of the major issues is saying, the BBI is saying it's coming to address is the issue of incubation. Are we replicating the youth fund again?
Kenya industrialists.
Yeah, are we replicating it so it will just be issuing money and yet the mentoring, yet the business development, yet the market entry plans are not there? So I would like Walter, because he's the senior government officer here and we're live on TV, to get the youth together in your office and say, look, guys, you guys are moving in the wrong direction. In fact, the leaders are laughing at you. Yeah?
All right.
Come together, let's sit down and agree what's in the BBI and what we need added in the BBI. Let's not fight it and say totally it's wrong. No, let's say what we discover that is not there, how can we add it onto that? And I appreciate, like you first started by saying, His Excellency Raila Odinga, the former Prime Minister, has said that they are open to discussion. So that gives the youth a window of opportunity to now get the real issues addressed at this time. Failure to which same cycle continues.
Okay, towards the last minute or so, we have 30 seconds to wind up on this. Harriet, as you take your 30 seconds, I mean, I'd love for you to address this, that we always say the devil is in the detail, but the excitement is real. The conversation is on. We might be consumed in this or by this, and we tend to forget into the aspect of understanding the details. I mean, which we say there are very many policies, and good for that matter, that have been presented. But we ask ourselves, how realistic are they? The mechanisms of ensuring that these ones sail through. Can we get excited to a point of forgetting to look into these details?
Well, let me start by saying I will want to anchor my opinion today on two tenets of leadership. One of them is integrity, and the other one is influence. You know, everyone in this country is a leader. It matters not. It's only that you have your small space of leadership that you have not amplified it. And that is why you had the leader of Boda Boda saying, I've been leading these people, but I don't have any papers. And true to his word, he's a good leader within his space. Now, when you see the excitement, and this excitement is brought about by politics, or politics, as I put it. We tweak in tricks here and there to ensure that our personal selfish interests sail. And that is why, for me, I would say I'm a bit disappointed with leaders who want to politicize everything simply because they want to earn their selfish cake. You know, the reason as to why I will support it is because I'm an MCA. I want to run to become an MCA, and I've seen there's a ward fund. That ward fund, you've not even realized that while the ward fund is being devolved, what are the structures? Are you going to work with synergy with your MP and your governor? Because those are the questions that you're supposed to be asking. How is this fund going to be taken down to the wards? You know, so we need, as leaders, to come out of our comfort zone and start cushioning the people that we represent. Let us come out of our selfish cocoons, because I always tell the people that I mentor, by the time you're 40, if you have nothing to show for your 40 years, there's really nothing else you're going to do from 40 to 60. You're now running to catch a tail. So by the time you reach 40, as you go on, you're supposed now to be planning your retirement, you know? So what impact have you made? So this is the time for the youth. What impact, what strategy do you as a youth out there, and this I want to challenge all the youth actually, you as youths who are now shouting, you know, and advancing political ideologies without thinking beyond the future. By the time you hit 40, you'll no longer be a youth. You'll be in the cluster of the others.
Yes.
In fact, a good friend of mine always says, Professor Dr. Lutalala always says, we discuss about youth and women. The others are the men. We are not anywhere.
Yes.
Which is true, but
Yeah.
it fits into how the society has been perceived.
Right.
So we need now to come out of the society of sycophancy. I can assure you, as a leader, I really, really admire, and every day I yearn for the person who will tell me, by the way, I like your idea, but it's the wrong time to implement.
Okay.
Or, by the way, Harriet, on that one, you're wrong.
Positive criticism.
Positive
Let's allow the
criticism.
rest to come in.
Yeah.
You are waiting for my 30
30
seconds.
seconds, yes.
Please make it 2 minutes.
No.
We can't continue to be people who shift goalposts as we measure temperature. Come up with a document, then put it in public, tukiona kunaenda moto tuna retreat, then we don't believe in what we're saying. And then we don't believe what we're putting on the table. We have to have a stand. We have to stand for something.
Yeah.
If we have to get the BBI in, let's get it in. If we got to get it out, let's get it out. Not based on emotions and who's doing what.